Welcome to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yance, and today is part 9 of my interview with Evan Crooke. He is a producer, a distributor, a writer, and a director. Enjoy.
That's
when you released this, I'm sure you released it in New York at some point.
we did. We did. It was
And that was through AMC.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if like maybe it would have done better if you had done it more with the smaller theaters, maybe because I just feel like it has that art house
It
feel in
did,
some
and,
ways.
and we entertained that, but
Yeah.
we
What
had
yeah, I'm curious.
we had a deal with AMC,
Okay.
and we had there were structural reasons why we did that. We were also
Yeah.
we were trying to build a good relationship with AMC, and AMC was a pretty big venue. It was a pretty large venue for us to tap into.
It's like 6 in New York.
Yeah. And so all these things, when you get into the business side of things, you have to make these hard choices and go with those choices. And so we made those choices for a variety of reasons, but
Okay.
one of them was that we felt that AMC would do right by the film, and that they believed in the film, and we also knew it was a big venue, and so you can only do so much, and you hope for the best, and run those experiments and see what happens. But at that time, AMC was behind it, and that was important to us. So
yeah, I don't know. That's just the thing I noticed about it. It was just like I was seeing this. If this was in my trajectory, I would have seen this. I don't know if I would have seen it if I had seen that cover, because it would have made me think it's a different film. But I understand why it works for you guys.
Right.
But from watching, I was just like, I wonder how this would have done if it was, if you went to like the Film Forum, the anthology place in New York. Then maybe word spread. Then it might not work either. But then it might have been. They're both risks. That's the thing.
Either way, it would have been a different path. Electric Slide had a bit of the artsiness to it, but it had enough of the commercial realm to it. And I wanted to pitch it more on the commercial realm because we felt that we would reach the masses greater. And
it reminded me of Drive when I first saw it.
Yes.
It had that feel.
Energy. Yes.
Shot in LA.
Yep, exactly.
This impending doom that's kind of surrounding both the characters of like, this ain't gonna end up well for them.
It did have that realm of Drive in it, and it had and I'm a big fan of Drive, and it was a good movie. I think Cliff Martinez did the music on it, and
he did.
And I actually met with Cliff twice.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. I forget which film. I read that.
He goes way back to Sex, Lies, and Videotape for Soderbergh, and I met him because we were trying to get him to do the music for The Killing Jar, actually.
That's where I read it. Yeah, I remember reading something in the trivia. This is like Cliff Martinez.
And he's really talented, But I think the whole team behind Electric Slide did a great job. They put together a great movie, and
I would have been like, oh man, I love this movie. You need to go see this. You need to go.
It's possible.
But I understand the reasons.
It's possible that if we had gone the route of art house sort of distribution, if you will, it's possible it could have become a sleeper, if you will, meaning catch on over time.
Yeah.
But the other option is it could have also fizzled out and died, never even made it. And it's also possible it would have never seen the light of Netflix, and the list goes on.
So it was a catch-22.
So we took it in a commercial way, and I felt that it had enough commercial viability to it to angle it in a commercial direction, meaning more masses, less artsy, if you will. But it was right. You're right. It was sort of right in the middle. It was
I mean that was the only thing. It's just like when I watched it, it's like, okay, why have I not seen this? Why have I not seen this? It's in LA.
Yeah.
It has a little bit of a Lost Highway feel and Drive feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like blown away. I was like, okay, I really like this movie. Like, I'm definitely gonna buy this.
Yeah, and I liked the centerpiece, the love story that's in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
What's her name? She was probably fresh off of was it Transformers?
Yeah, she was a model. She's an Australian model, by the way. But it was a fun film.
Yeah. I don't know. I was just curious about that.
Sure.
Because I was like, okay, that had to have crossed their mind. I was like, I wanted to know if that. All right, so let's talk about the killing hole. The kill hole. Can't believe I can't. It's right there, and I still got it wrong. My mind, it's the killing hole, but it's the kill hole.
The producer is very talented. We picked up a couple of his films that we distributed early in his career. And when the film came to me, I called him up, and I had no idea, like most people, no one knew who Chaz Bosman was. And I called him up and I said, "Who is this guy?" And I said, "I think he's going to be the next Denzel Washington." He said, "Yeah." And that's when the producer told me that he was just wrapping production on 42 and with Harrison Ford. And I said, "Great." So we picked it up. We had only international rights on that title. And another great moment to discuss about how important marketing is. When we went out to meet with buyers internationally at Cannes, at AFM, and all the international markets, a lot of the buyers were looking at the art and didn't know who Chad was, didn't recognize him, knew who Billy Zane was, and so on. But the film wasn't really selling. The film wasn't selling as much as I had hoped. And so I had heard, literally, I was at a market, I think it was at Cannes or MIP TV up in France. And just before getting there, just as I'm getting there, the movie 42 came out. So I saw the artwork. It's got Chad's name. It's got Harrison Ford. So I call up my team in the
He's
US.
like doing a baseball slide on it.
Yes.
Type of thing. Yeah.
So I called my team up and basically had the art guys in our company do a large 11 by 14, and they split the screen and the paper in half, and they put 42 on the left and they put the kill hole on the right. And then I had that sent out to us, and we had posters made immediately, put that up in the booth, and boom, sales started going through the roof, and we started selling that film, basically, because now the buyers could recognize, wait a minute, he's just appearing in this new movie coming out, 42. Obviously, he's going to be a big named actor. And then you got this independent movie. And so what we did is we branded him, cross-branding and marketing, and it made a big difference. And then on that particular piece of art, we did a lot of comps. It's one of my favorite pieces of art that we did. A lot of layering, it was a lot of work. It was quite a bit of work. And it was a combination of a company that I work with on the outside as well as internally. And so we probably altogether had 10 different people working on the artwork. And it was a fun experience, but it was very, very tedious. It came out great. I think it came out great. And so, and that was a fun film because this was a new talent. He was so talented. And it was really clear to me. I didn't know what was to come. I didn't even know about 42. I just called up the producer and I said, "Man, this guy is amazing. He's going to be the next Denzel Washington." And sure enough, 42, and then he came out with, Get Up.
Get Up.
James Brown. And then, of course, later, Black Panther and a whole
bunch
of things before that. And then, of course, as we all know, tragically, he died very young. And after he died, I got lots of emails. "Oh, do you have the kill, and I said, no, the rights, we're done selling that. The rights have reverted back to the producer. And so what a very real shame to see him pass away at such an early age.
Yeah.
So talented. But yeah, and that was a film, that we tried to also market with the artwork commercially.
Yeah.
I could argue there's great parts of it that's very artsy, if you will, particularly the thing. I
would say that would be very hard for the average, because you're dealing with situations of, I mean, there's parts of it I think that that do work commercially, but like if we're talking about when he's there and he's meeting him, and I'm sure an average audience is like, why isn't he just attacking him? Why is he listening to him?
Right.
Whereas an artist understands that, because they both understand each other, kind of thing.
If I had been directing or producing it or whatever, I probably would have changed the ending a little bit to be less artsy, if you will, less abstract. But regardless, overall, it wasn't. The majority of the film were overpowering, and we decided to take a risk with it. But yeah, no, it was a great film. The producer has gone off and done other things. We had a producer, one of our different producer, on one of our first movies that we distributed of his, that went off and actually became the producer who did The Hurt Locker, actually. Yeah, so I mean, we had a good experience with a lot of talent, a lot of people that are exceptionally talented. Yeah. And have been.
I love Billy Zane. I mean, he's such an
Billy Zane was great.
actor.
Yeah. Dead Comic was one of my favorite movies that he was in.
Yeah.
Cole Kidman. And he was always an interesting actor, and still is. I mean, he was still good. But no, it brings up, what do you do from a marketing point of view? What do you do from a logistic point of view when you have a film that teeters between a little bit more on the artsy side that you would may not want to have as much, because you still have 75% of your film or 80% of your film that feels and looks very commercial, right?
Yeah.
And that's that balancing act, no different than Oppenheimer.
I would say The Kill Hole feels more in the commercial realm than I would with the.
But it had a little bit of that artsiness to it, and
that middle part there, I could see people, going, what is this? I mean, I like it, but
But it's also good to take risks, and it's good to break the mold. And sometimes, look, every story is a new opportunity, and every story is basically a new business and a form of new ideas and entrepreneurism. That's the exciting part of it. And so you can either choose to follow all the other traditional realms that came before it, or you can change it up. And more and more today, in this day and age, the audience likes to change it up. In the end, the audience wants to see something that they haven't seen before. And so,
but I think it's also a case-by-case basis. You can't always go with that. You have to kind of evaluate it, like you said, with those films, be like, which is going to be the way to go. And I think it's good for artists to understand that decision has to be made. Do we go the art form way, or do we go this way? Which way is going to be more profitable? Understanding why it went this way. I think a lot of people just got to look at it, just like, well, when you do,
exactly. A lot of times artists, when they give the film, or they not give, but they license the film to someone else, or a distributor, or collaborate with a distributor or a sales rep, they also have to understand that they have made a choice to work with someone else who most likely, not may, 99% will change their vision when it comes to the sales and marketing of the film. And if they cannot part with that, they should not do it. They need to understand that, just like when the writer works with me in writing a script, and he and I or she and I or whatever are going back and forth over ideas, that writer taking it from, let's say, a book, they've already will transform their vision, their imprint from the book. And then when I take that script and I make it into a movie that I'm going to direct, it's going to be a different variation of where the writer left off. Well, what artists don't seem to understand is that once you've made that ball of wax, that this movie, the story that you're going to tell, whatever. And if I hand off what I'm handing to a distributor, even though I'm a distributor, or I distribute it myself, or I hand it off to someone else, whoever I hand it off to is going to hopefully listen to what I'm wanting, hopefully listening and interpret some of the ideas that I'm going for. But in general, they're going to have their own vision for it. And so it's a very painful experience, and it involves a great deal of trust, and it involves letting control go. You have to relinquish control and not know what's going to happen to your baby, and see it either evolve. And sometimes it evolves into something that you are proud of, and something that you want to, that's different, or sometimes it evolves into something that you weren't expecting. But either way, if you're not okay with that transfer and that relinquishing of power and control, and it turning into something else, then you shouldn't part with it. So
you see that all the time. I mean, look at, older films. They'll change the box art, or they'll change the cover art to appeal to it. I mean, they did that with what was it, Tom Cruise's movie, The Edge of Tomorrow, whatever. They tried to rebrand, they changed the name to like repeat, so that people get, so I mean, that just kind of goes with the territory.
Yeah.
Especially if it doesn't do well.
Yeah. Marketing and sales and advertisement does not always line. In fact, most of the time, it does not line verbatim exactly perfectly to what the story is about. There is a variation. And that's because in storytelling, you've got anywhere from 90 minutes to 3 hours, or multiple episodes, to convey what you want to the audience. In an image, you've got less than 1 second. And so the rules and the framework are completely different. The language is completely different. And so you've got to convey something very fast to an audience that has an attention span of a gnat, which is the whole consumer planet. And so and that's what filmmakers forget about. And they get into an uproar sometimes of not appreciating how difficult that is.
Because sometimes the filmmakers want to be involved with this.
Oh yeah,
or are they just a nuisance?
No. We enjoy getting the filmmakers' input, and we had always set out to get approval from our filmmakers, and we would make suggestions. They would come back and give input, but at the end, the distributor, including us, would always have the final say. And the reason, the logic behind that is that you're hiring us to understand the marketing and sales of your film. You're hiring us and you're having trust in our ability to grab eyeballs that will convert to cash. And so if you don't have trust in that, then you shouldn't hire us. You should hire someone else. And so we would always try to get approval. I think only on maybe 2 occasions that we had to, that I recall, that we had to pull rank, if you will, where we went back and forth multiple times, changing the comp to please the artist as well as please the marketplace. And then eventually we ran out of time. We couldn't please the artists anymore. We had to go with what we felt was right. And we had to pull rank and say, look, we have final say. I'm sorry. You hired us for a job. Our job is to make sales on your film. And our job is to sell this widget. And so a lot of times filmmakers don't want their films called widgets. They don't want to be thinking of them as assets. But they are assets and they are widgets. and you can pull all the money and all the heart and soul into your art, but in the end, if it doesn't sell, it means nothing.
Well, it's like we came back to. It's like you're not curing cancer.
Right.
But that's the way a lot of them, treat it. They don't understand they're a part of this bigger part.
Correct.
And this is why. Do you think they're oblivious to this? Because we talked about how like they won't read the contract, they won't look at this. Are they just not knowledgeable that like this is how you're gonna
they're
distribute it? Okay.
No, they're very talented. They're very smart. They're most of the time they're very intuitive, but they're geared in most of the time by an unobstructed, undisciplined amount of emotion. And they're letting that emotion guide them and push them forward. And they believe that that emotion is all they need. And what they really need is to shape that emotion so that they have tracks in which they can go down, and they can discipline themselves to understand that the emotion has to be controlled, and it has to be controlled in a sense that they can function in a business format. And they lose sight of that. It's not because they're intentionally trying to be difficult. I don't believe any of them intentionally try to be difficult. And most of them, almost all the filmmakers we worked with and the filmmakers I've gotten to know over the years have been wonderful, creative people to work with. And a lot of them have great business sense. They actually understand a good amount of business, but some of them lack those business skills. And I think the reason they lack those business skills is they're so focused on
their vision.
They're so focused on what they have to tell, and they're so busy speaking about their message, their movie, their passion, whatever they got to tell you, and instead of listening, instead of realizing and looking at the bigger picture and listening carefully, and realize that, wait a minute, if I went to a distributor, I went to a distributor for two reasons. That distributor knows the marketplace, they have the contacts, but also embedded in that, they understand how to sell my widget. And they have a hard time. If you tell a filmmaker who just came off of a movie and making it for 4 or 5 years, you go up and you say, look at the difference. Go up to a film festival next time and say, that was a great widget. That versus go up to them and say, that was an amazing film, right?
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, every distributor that approaches those filmmakers, regardless if it's at Sundance, regardless if it's a Tribeca, or if it's something small and wonderful, but something at Big Bear, at the end of the day, any distributor, no matter how small they are, how big they are, in their head, they're looking at all that product the same. It's product, it's a widget. Just because they don't have the guts to come up and say to you, great widget that we want to sell, the reality is it's a widget. And so one thing that a filmmaker—
There you go. That'd be a new marketing. We sell widgets.
Well, I mean, it is, right? I mean, it's an asset, right? Yeah. I mean, a film library, for example, is an asset business. You're not selling housekeeping. You're not doing a service. You're based on an asset business. And so you're creating assets. And when you pick up someone's films, what you're really doing is picking up their assets. And then you're trying to resell those assets. And so one of the problems is filmmakers allow themselves to feel every emotion. They are great at hopefully they converge that talent into storytelling, but they would do themselves a good service by not just learning the business, but also learning how to get control of their emotion and understand that the world does not revolve in just one area, that the business is very complex. It's part of the business is artistic. The other part of the business is the marketing, the sales, and the business.
And you're also trying to help them make a profit. And
right, exactly.
That's a different.
And that filling certain words. We live in a very politically correct environment where everyone's so sensitive, and artists are the most sensitive creatures. We are the most exposed. We are the most out there, naked in the woods, so to speak, and we are always being judged for what we create. And it's a terrifying experience. Everybody wants to talk about themselves. Everybody wants to be applauded and say, oh, what a genius you are. And everybody wants to take risk and feel that they should be rewarded for the risk they took. The last thing we want to be told is criticized, or, oh, you made a widget and that widget's not going to sell as well as it could have. And so, but the more harsh reality that artists are able to accept criticism and also accept that, as important as the story is to them, it may not be as important to the world as they think it is. And the less we're in here, if we can go from here and step out and go back and step out, and we can get proper perspective, then we can appreciate the executive at Warner Brothers and Netflix. Because not every executive is an evil monster. Not every marketing person is an evil monster.
And that's part of the reason I'm doing this, is to show like these are not evil. Not evil. This is I'm trying to understand where that, that idea.
And the reality is that we all need to understand each other, and we need to understand our roles in the business, and we need to understand how the different parts come together. If you're focused and you're rigid and you're only focused on the emotion and only focused on the art, there is no way you'll ever be able to appreciate the business.
And what's one of the biggest rules in business? Don't make decisions based on emotion.
Yes, correct. That's correct. And even in the artistic side of things, I would say that even applies there. When I'm going through structure on this story, like today, I had a meeting with my writer, and he was pitching me a different direction, and I was feeling it. I was listening, and I was just holding what he was saying. I had to do that, and I had to step back for a second and put my analytical thinking or business mind thinking on, and I'm thinking to myself, will that work for the audience, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to juggle both worlds. You have to be able to go back and forth. And so that's the tricky part. That's the tricky part of this.
Do you prefer being on the production side as well as being the distributing side? So that way, when you're making it, you already are kind of figuring out how you're going to distribute it.
Yeah, I really love production, and I really love being creative, and the joys of creativity is agonizingly painful but wonderful all at the same time. And having distribution is a plus and a minus. I'm embarking on something that will be part of the storytelling experience again, and yet I have years and years and years of P&Ls in my head. I know what films have failed and what films have done well in the marketplace. And I know that I, as an artist, that one set of choices that leads down one road could have a profound impact on that P&L in a positive or a negative way. And so it's terrifying. And in some ways, having the knowledge as a distributor is even more terrifying, because I'm embarking on something that's high risk. And when I made The Killing Jar, I had no distribution experience. So I was the usual artist focused on telling the story, but I did have one advantage than other filmmakers. I think to some degree, I did have a good appreciation for business, and I really treated The Killing Jar always that, even before I started working on it, that I was creating an asset, I was creating a widget. In the end, I was going to pour my heart into it. I was going to find a way to believe in the story, mold the story into something that I could see as a vision that would work for me. But that if I didn't sell it, if I couldn't sell it and I couldn't make profit with it, or the film failed, I had failed at my job. And that my number one job was to reach the masses and entertain along with profitability. And so I always had that business sense. When I delivered The Killing Jar assets to our distributors said to me, that I was the most business savvy producer they had ever come encountered with. I had all my deliverables intact. I had 6 different binders below the line and above the line with every single organized piece of paper and contract intact, as if I was handing off a corporation to another corporation. And guess what? When you deliver, you're handing off a corporation to another corporation. You built an asset, you're selling that business to your distributor. So the more organized you are and the more thoughtful you are in your organization, the better. And so you really have to be able to go from business thinking, creative thinking, and you have to dabble back between those two. So to answer your question, I believe optimistically, in spite of my fears, that my years of distribution and my years of production, and now being older and more mature and having lived through just life and what life does to you, I believe I'm more ready now to tell stories, and I will be a better director today ever than I was when I was 26. And in spite of our industry being a young person business, I'm still young enough. But besides that, I think I've got the business side of the world and I've got the creative side of the world to really go have incredible fun and entertain the audience with new productions. So that's my goal. Yeah. My goal is to forge these two with years of experience and really make stories for an affordable budget that will make profit, and that most importantly will entertain the audience and will move the audience. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, that about does it for part 9 of my interview with Evan Crooke. I want to thank him personally. As always, you can find me at Justin Yachts. Please like, share, and subscribe, and consider checking out the YouTube channel. And I'll see you next time on the DMF